Hello and welcome to another chapter in Forensic Accounting and Fraud Examination. In this chapter, we're going to focus on cybercrime. But before we get started with cybercrime, let's kind of recap what we have learned about fraudulent activities and how they have evolved over the years. The textbook author refers to an article in which one of the former IRS officers has talked about how crime has evolved over the years. In the early 1900s, most of the fraud was related to cash, amassing a large amount of cash and not paying taxes on it. Most of these fraudulent schemes involved alcohol, gambling, prostitution, drugs, basically everything that's illegal. Alcohol was illegal at that time, now it is legal. All of these activities generated large amounts of cash, and the individuals who were engaging in such activities obviously were not paying taxes. This was in the 1920s and 1930s. Moving on to the next era. So the Paleolithic era is basically comparing it to the Stone Ages. Moving on to the next era, this is when, if you were to look at the historical timeline of man, this is when they had crude tools to protect themselves for hunting, gathering, etc. So now we're talking about fraud over here. So in the 1960s, you had the next generation of fraudsters. So these guys were called the son of mobsters because in the Prohibition era, you had the mobsters, and now their next generation came along. And they realized that the accountant is a far more powerful individual that can, if you could influence them negatively, obviously, you could get them to participate and help you in amassing very large amounts of money and conceal it quite effectively, therefore, again, not paying taxes. So this was in the 60s. So they were a lot more sophisticated than their parents were in the 30s in terms of uh, committing fraudulent activities and hiding these cash proceeds that they had. Moving on to the 30 years later, so this is now yet another next generation that we have over here. Now we have moved on to the generation where we have computers. In computers and networks of computers, the internet at large has become are involved in fraud. How are they involved in fraud? They could be the tool or they could be the victim of the fraud. So now we have another level of sophistication. You had accountants, now you have computer geeks that have added to the fold of illegal activities, fraudulent activities that happen. And that's what we're going to talk about in this chapter. So unlike our traditional fraud cases, what's different and difficult over here? Computer fraud can be difficult for fraud examiners and for forensic professionals, which is what we've been talking about throughout the semester, because there's no paper trail. We have always prided ourselves as accountants saying that we need to have a paper trail for audit purposes, and the auditor can find things amiss if they find anomalies while they're doing their audit. But if there is no paper trail, we now have to look elsewhere. The elsewhere is on the computer for the audit trail. Again, it's not to say that you won't have an audit trail, but it's different. Now, to understand this different, you need to understand the technology. So you need to have an understanding of the technology that has been used to commit the crime. You need to understand the technology of the victim computer. Now, again, using an analogy back to our paper trail was very easy. We all know the rules about debits and credits, how the books are set up, the accounting cycle, etc. Any accountant could come into an audit. But now we are talking about the same accounting information that's on a computer, and the computers could all be set up differently. So no two computers are alike, the configuration is not alike, so there's a lot of issues over here. Even if you're using canned computer software, whether you're using QuickBooks, Peachtree, a larger enterprise resource software like Great Plains Dynamics, they all are configured differently. And what we also see is very often you're going to need specialists to help you through this process, because our training is as a fraud examiner or a forensic accountant. we are not computer literate to the extent that we could actually find fraud in the computer in that environment. So we are facing a completely different set of challenges over here. So again, now we are looking at the cyber world, and what happens with the cyber world, the computer is part and parcel of the crime. It could be the object of the crime, which means it's subject to physical destruction. Someone could physically destroy it. This is similar to someone coming and burning the books. So someone could destroy the computers. It could be a subject, used as a subject. So it is used to commit the crime. It could be a tool. It's a part of a larger crime. So it could be used in either generating the sales. It could be used to in the concealment, the layering, conversion, any way they could be used in the crime. And sometimes, again, it's not uncommon where they would use computer as a symbol. Okay, the symbol being, I'm trying to make this look very legit. No different than if you had back in the day, when you saw a salesperson wearing a suit and tie, they somehow, you kind of had a little more respect for them because they were wearing nice clothes, they could talk well, etc. Now I'm going to use the computer to do the same thing. If my computer looks good, what I have on my computer, the message on my computer looks authentic, a lot of people get fooled. It's not uncommon where someone gets completely fooled into thinking they're logging into their bank website. This is a bank that they've done business with many, many years. They've gone to this website for a long time, and yet they fall victim because someone has used this computer to basically operate as that bank, and we got fooled simply because of the way it looked. If someone had come and told me they were a banker, my banker, I probably would have questioned them, asked them for credentials, but people don't hesitate to log into a site. So computers can be used in many different ways to perpetrate a fraud. So now let's kind of distinguish between a computer fraud and a computer crime. So first thing is computer crime. If it's a criminal act, there are actually some laws that are going to help us prosecute that crime. The problem is it's really hard to track down that crime. So the computer crime is an act where the computer hardware, software, data, whatever it is altered, destroyed, manipulated, or compromised due to acts which are not intended. Okay, so that was not the intended purpose of the hardware, the software, the data. Someone altered it. So they proactively did something over there. Computer fraud in most jurisdictions, and we're going to talk about this word jurisdictions a little later, they have defined computer fraud as an attempt crime, basically saying that a computer is a protected asset. If someone tries to do something, attempts to even do it, it's a fraud. Okay, so access occurs with intent to execute a fraudulent scheme. So whoever accessed that computer, they intended to do something fraudulent. So that's a computer fraud. Computer fraud and financial crimes are technically not computer crimes, but often involve the use of computers as a mean to break the law. So we get into a lot of technical difficulties over here with trying to explain what's a fraud and what's a crime. And depending on which jurisdiction you're in, the laws could be a little different. Now in the United States, the Congress has actually passed a few acts that has helped the law enforcement go after both computer crime and computer fraud. Trying to actually prove it and get the people who've done this, that's a whole different story. Now let's look at an employee. We're looking at a corporate environment. There are different levels of employees as it relates to the computer and the hardware and the software. You could have individuals who have access to the computer. So they have physical access. They legally have access to the computer. They've been given access by their employer. And they may be given access to the data that's there through the computer, whether it's housed in that computer physically or on a network. They do have access. If this person commits fraud, they had access and they committed the fraud. So they did not have to break into the system. Now, there could be some individuals who have some level of access to the computer and the data. So I have access to certain things on PeopleSoft. I have access to certain records of student records on PeopleSoft as a professor, but not all the data that's out there. So what data do I have access to and what data do I not have access to? I basically have access to data that relates to the courses students have taken, which semester they took the course in, what grades they got, and that's about it. I don't have access to allowing them to enroll in a class. I can give them or lift the hold on their account, but I cannot enroll any student into a class that is closed or give them an override if they don't have the prerequisites. So what I'm getting at over here is, as a professor, I have access to my computer. I have access to data, but limited data, not all of it. If I get into that data that I should not have access to, then it's a fraudulent act, especially if it's fraudulent act if I did that with the intention of committing fraud. There could be an individual who does not have access to the computer, should not have access to a computer, or maybe should not have access to any data. They could have access to a computer just for very limited reasons. It could be only input. All they're required to do is input information, not anything else. Again, here what we're looking at is when you're prosecuting, when you're trying to actually uncover a fraud, even before you get to prosecution, when you're trying to uncover the fraud, you need to see who the employees are, what level of access they had, and what their acts were. Were they legal or were they illegal? What was the intention? So there are several layers that we need to uncover. So again, now, what are we concerned with in fraud examination? When we're looking at fraud examination and forensic accounting, we're concerned with what losses I suffered, okay? Because we're always looking at restitution. Now, in this case, you're probably not going to get any restitution, but I need to know what my losses are. So economic losses that a business suffers, just responding to the illegal act. Someone hacked my network. My computer is down. My system is down. Just responding to that act of trying to get my systems up, contact customers, all of that damage control I need to do, that's going to cost me a lot of money. Conducting a damage assessment just to find out how much losses I've had, that's a problem as well. Restoring the data and program to original condition, that could be a complete nightmare. In a lot of cases, it's a nightmare because I had not updated my system. And when you ask a programmer to restore your data and restore your program, you want to restore it to the original condition, and they may not be able to restore it to the original condition. They may say, we are going to give you the updated version. And then what were the other consequential damages? Actual sales. During the period the computers were down, how much sales did I lose? It could be something like a cash register at a store. You go to a store and they tell you of the 20 cash registers they have, let's say 10 of them are down, only 10 are working. What's going to happen? You're going to have very long lines over there. What do a lot of us as customers immediately, what's our reaction? We don't want to wait over there, we're going to leave. They have actually lost a sale. This was someone who walked into the store, picked up an item, came to the cash register to purchase the item. Any business person would tell you that that sale is yours. If that customer walks away without buying, it's a terrible loss for them. The company reputation, that is really a problematic if it is something that gets advertised. So there are several different types of damages that a company could suffer. Trying to assess what those damages are and putting a dollar amount to it could be significant. Now, why do I need a dollar amount? Because sometimes I may be able to get compensation from my insurance company for the damages, but they would need to see what those damages are, what the dollar amount is, before they're going to give me any kind of compensation. Now, beyond the economic loss, there are special losses that we could talk about, and these are much larger. These are more at a larger public level that we're talking about. The economic losses, I focus mostly on the corporate losses. So what are some of the special losses? You could have actual or potential effect on medical care. If a hospital system is down, the patient data could get compromised. How could it get compromised? Well, you could completely lose it if whatever the attack is, wipes out my data. I don't have that data anymore. I don't have my patient records anymore. A patient has walked in. Let's say the patient has come for a radiation treatment. I cannot do it because I don't have their history with me. It could get altered, which is terrible. Well, both of these situations are terrible. The patient cannot be given care that day because the data was lost, that access was lost. There are so many problems that could happen at the hospital if their systems are compromised in any way, shape, or form. Uh, think of another situation. This is again, unfortunately, recently I've heard in Harford County, the 911 system has been plagued recently. Thankfully, it's been the non-emergency line that's being plagued. But even so, the injury that could happen to a person, if someone is calling in to report to call 911, it's obviously a serious situation. And if they don't get access to 911 and therefore the care and attention they need at that point of time from the law enforcement, the consequences could be disastrous to that individual, whether it's domestic violence, a traffic accident, a tree down, whatever the case may be. These are all serious problems that we need to think about. The third one, which now at the national level, people are really concerned, these are people at the highest levels of the government, is the public grid. If someone can hack into the public grid, they could cause damage that is actually quite scary. Uh, it could be damage in terms of our entire traffic light system could go down. Think of the chaos. Some small towns, it may not be such a big deal, but larger cities, you're going to be in a gridlock forever. If it is our entire heating system, cooling system, think about all the responses that we have when we are looking at places like California with their wildfire. Now, again, all of these systems are extremely advanced with the help of computers and networks. If those computers and networks are compromised, we could be in some serious trouble. And the last bullet point is talking about damage to a computer related to national security. So we're talking about the government agencies, the largest government agency, the Air Force, the military services. If their systems are compromised, what could happen? All of these, regardless of when it happens, where it happens, these are serious problems. Are these hypothetical? No, they're not. We've heard about Baltimore city government's system being held for ransomware. That happened in Atlanta. We've heard about hospitals that have had their systems compromised. I just told you about Harford County's non-emergency 911 system. The list is endless. And these are all very scary because we have no idea who is doing it. We do know that some of it is our fault. For instance, Baltimore City, what was the fault? They did not do the patches. Patches are basically doing software updates and doing virus protections constantly. Baltimore City, in their infinite wisdom, had decided not to do it. A long story as to why they decided not to do it, but that poor choice of theirs of not doing it cost them a lot of money. Baltimore City doesn't need any more problems. So it's very scary in terms of how large scale a problem could be if there are these cyber attacks that we're not prepared for. You can never be immune from it, but we need to be prepared for it. And that's some of the things we're going to look at over here. And of course, we are going to focus at a corporate level. So I talked about jurisdictions a little while back. When we talk about jurisdictions, we're talking about the United States at the federal level, and then you have the states. Now, if you're talking about crime within our cities, they're all local. They're either within the city, within the county, within the state. If you go to the next state, the person goes over to the next state, it's called an interstate. The person has crossed the state lines, it becomes a federal crime, etc. Now we're looking at the criminal being anywhere around the world. So what are the problems now if the criminal is outside of the United States? Well, obviously, our laws may not apply because every jurisdiction has their own set of laws, and they're going to abide by their laws. Trying to locate the source of the crime and the physical location of the criminal is extremely challenging. And even if you got them, if their laws are not going to give those criminals to us or don't exactly tie in with what our rules are, we may be just not, we may be completely out of luck in that there's nothing we can do about it. Uh, Securing electronic evidence is very difficult, largely because we already said there's no paper trail, it's all electronic. If someone compromises that electronic data, then there is no data over there for you to secure. Also, electronic data is subject to manipulation. You'll have to prove the manipulation. Of course, it can be done, but at what cost? Over the years, what you would see is with more computers used, more internet traffic, more internet business, there's more internet crime, but complaints have dropped, but losses have risen. That doesn't make sense. Well, complaints have dropped largely because a lot of people, a lot of businesses, everyone knows you cannot be just a pure brick and mortar business. You have to have a cyber presence. And that cyber presence could kill you if it gets out that your computers were compromised in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of people are choosing not to disclose that they were subject to any kind of cyber attack. But the losses are mounting, and the losses are very significant when they do happen. Several countries, the US also got together with European countries, have passed various cybercrime acts and laws, basically promising to cooperate with each other to help each other fight cybercrime. It's no different than any other form of crime. We have to cooperate, just as you would say the city and the state have to cooperate, the state and the federal government of the United States have to cooperate. We have to cooperate with people outside of our country because the bad actors could be anywhere and they could be working in any combination. Another thing that has made matters worse as far as fraud examination is concerned is how the money is transferred back and forth. If you think of transferring money, if it's a traditional money that you're transferring, so if I give you money, it's an actual physical exchange of cash. I could give you money, the cash, but give it to you through, let's say, a transfer agency such as a Western Union. But I'm still giving you cash. But now in the digital space, the type of money that's transferred is more complex, and trying to seize those assets and use it for forfeiture is really very difficult. I'm talking about things like Bitcoin. All of these are different forms of money which have taken a life of its own. And if you recently, if you read the news, you would see even Facebook was trying to come up with a new currency called Libra. So a few years ago, there was a lot of talk when businesses were trying to get into the credit card business. Retailers were trying to get into the credit card business. There was a lot of opposition to it, saying that the banking industry is separate. No one should get into the banking industry except banks. Retailers should not be allowed to offer credit cards. Well, now you have payments in yet another form that is not even within the jurisdiction of the United States. The IRS has said that if you have Bitcoins, those are considered assets and you have to pay property taxes on it. And that's the only way they figure they can get into having some control over this asset. If you recall, in the very first slide, I talked about the retired IRS agent who talked about how crime has evolved. So when he was talking about the third era where we have computer geeks, we are now actually probably looking at the fourth era, because we're looking at these computer geeks have created a new currency which is not regulated by any market. It's trading on the New York Stock Exchange, but it's not regulated by the markets. So it's basically getting more complex as time goes by. So again, in the next few slides, we're going to talk about what the threats are and how they're constantly evolving. So something that we knew a year ago may not hold true for now. Okay, so let's start with insider threats. Well, insider threats have always been there. That part is not new. But how they do commit the fraud is interesting. So remember, they have access to the computer system. They are the ones who are aware of where the holes are in the system, the insiders, and they're looking for some kind of an opportunity to commit the fraud. So there's that opportunity. When you think of the fraud triangle, there's the opportunity. There is very little supervision over some of the computer professionals, largely because they are a self-regulated kind of group. When you think about accountants, we have the AICPA. The AICPA is a self-regulated group, but we have extensive laws, regulations. There's all kinds of things that we have. The computer professionals, they do have various certifications, etc., but there is no one monitoring that group of professionals, largely because it's so rapidly evolving. Uh, Supervisory controls are very minimum, not saying lax, but they're very minimum. Uh, Computer fraudsters, very much like your traditional fraudsters, very intelligent, typically very hardworking. They like their jobs, but they get bored with the routine, and that's when we have this problem. So insider threats is a real problem, and it's something that we need to learn to live with, but we need to see how we can be one up on this situation, and we'll talk about it a little later. So what kind of hacking can take place? Different types of hacking. So first of all, when you talk about hacking, someone is trying to gain access to a system that they are not authorized to. They incorporate unsuspecting digital device owners into the schemes. So basically what you're looking at is, I have the computer, I have access to the computer. A fraudster comes in and tries to gain my confidence and basically tries to gain access to the system through me. How do they do it? There are a variety of ways in which they can do it, but typically all they need is a username and the password. Now, there are many other things I can do as a business so that there is more than just the username and the password, but typically it's the username and the password. That's all they need. So how are they going to get to the username and password? Again, if you're talking about someone who is a smart person, they know how to cheat and deceive. Simple deception goes a long way in this world of fraud. So all they need to do is they could pose as a temporary worker, a new worker to gain access. They, in some cases, just ask, and employees will give information without recognizing that the person is not authorized to have that information. In some cases, they could pose as the authority. Again, remember when we talked about when crime happens, fraudulent fraud happens in a business, if someone in position, someone in authority intimidates me and tells me that I should change something in the books, I'm likely to do it because I don't want to lose my job. And if my boss told me to do it, it must be okay. So again, if someone over here in authority or pretends to be the one in authority asks me to part with certain information, a lot of people are willing to part with information. And again, something so very simple that we should not do, unfortunately, many of us do this, is people write down on a piece of paper, on a post-it note, when you're changing your password. Every 6 months, universities require you to change your password. When you change your password, a lot of us will just scribble it on a sheet of paper, on a post-it note, and then we could save it somewhere else. Again, you shouldn't be doing that, but you save it somewhere else, and then you throw this document into the trash can. Someone who's looking for this information knows how to find it. They know where to look. Top drawer, people will have it. They will actually have a sheet of paper that have all their passwords listed, all their usernames, all their logins. So social engineering is very real, and you need to be careful. So if someone someone doesn't have to come to me and get my information to log in. They could do it by way of computer software. So viruses are basically softwares that are designed to attack my computer. What could it do? Many different things. It could shut down my computer altogether. It could slow down my computer. There are the denial of service, data denial of service. There are different types of viruses that could basically just make my business go so slow that I really cannot do anything. I'll give you an example of, we're thinking of computers, cash registers, etc., but it could be beyond that. I'm sure many of you have had this experience. You go to a gas station and you put your credit card through and you try to pump gas, and it goes really slowly. What should normally take you 5 minutes to fill up your gas tank is taking you 15 minutes. What's happened over there is their computer system is under attack at that time. Something is causing their system to go so slow that it's just dispensing gas at a very slow rate. Now, if that's all the problem is, as a customer, I really don't care. Okay, it took me an extra 5-10 minutes of my life, but I got my gas, I'm just going to move on. But if in this process, whatever malware there is, whatever the software attack is, if it's going to steal my data, I'm very concerned about it. Which is why now at a lot of gas stations, you will see they put a sticker every day indicating that they have checked and that this system is secure. So again, this could be anywhere, okay? And of course, your email is the worst place where we all fall victim. All of us get lots and lots of junk email and spam email. The golden rule is do not open it. Delete it even without opening it. And if you get it from repeatedly from the same address, you want to basically block those addresses or report them as spam. Very annoying. Again, takes a few extra clicks, which means a few extra seconds of your life that you're never going to get back, but you want to protect yourself. So virus is a way in which your computer could be attacked in many different ways. So some carriers and what the indicators are. If there's an unknown application that's gotten downloaded onto your computer will suddenly slow down. That's a malware attack. If you have software or media brought in by employees, okay, so what we're looking at is someone came and put something on my computer, my work computer. Now, when they put this on the work computer, my work computer is designed for me to do my work. But now, suddenly, because it has eaten up so much memory on my computer, there's far less free space, and that could slow down my computer. When you have these unsolicited emails, as I mentioned, it increases the file size. You're basically looking at it's eating up space. So not only do you want to delete it, you want to go into your trash and you want to delete it from there as well. Completely get it out of your system. Again, do not open those emails. Delete it without opening those emails. And then vendor supplier with infected software. So here we have a unique situation where, well, it's not unique, where it's a situation where with all our systems being integrated, we have the vertical integration, the horizontal integration, all these kind of things. Basically, it means we let our computer system interface with someone else's computer system. So a business, a manufacturer interfaces their software with the retailer, basically saying that when the retailer supplies falls below a certain level, the manufacturer will ship the items directly to them without even having an order placed. These are all prearranged agreements that have been made. Now, you have to let the two systems interface for this to be an effective arrangement. But if one of their software is infected, it's going to infect the other person's software as well. So your operating system begins behaving unpredictably. So it's basically making my system go all haywire. The problem is not mine, it's someone else's that has infected my computer. So this is a unique world that we are living in that we are so dependent on so many other systems that on a day-to-day basis, you cannot say that I will not have anything, no relation with the rest of the world. A couple of days ago, there was a big news article that talked about people getting text messages from days ago, weeks ago, and they didn't know where that was coming from, what that was. Basically, the provider that delivers all our text messages, there was a large chunk of messages, the files that went missing. They went into, I guess, cyber heaven, and suddenly it came back and it was delivered to all the appropriate people. So these are cases of where you have these systems behaving very unpredictably because someone else's system was not working. It's not your system that's not working. Your system is perfectly fine, but the other party has had an issue, and we are networked with the other party. So what could we do? Is there anything you could do? Absolutely. Effective security ensures availability of data. You want to make sure that your information is secure. You have all kinds of security in place, as in you have your firewalls, etc., to make sure that the data is always available when it is needed. You should never be denied the access to your data. Educate your personnel. All your employees need to know how the password should be structured. As in alphanumeric, you want special characters. Do not use predictable passwords, as in your child's name, your birthday, all of those things. Do not use that. Basic common sense and update passwords frequently. Most of us are guilty of not doing it, but we should. Any logical controls you could have for your network. Firewalls, do authentication. A lot of these seem very annoying when you're working, that you have to log in 2 and 3 times before you can get access to the system. But basically what these controls are doing is ensuring that the correct person has access to, only the authorized person has access to that data. Data encryption, anytime you're transmitting data, you want to have data encryption because you don't want the data, anyone who can have or who illegally gains access to the data and the process should not be able to read that data. Digital signatures, the Congress has passed an act allowing that, basically saying, giving people the authority to read documents and sign off on documents. And a lot of this is, again, it's undermined when people do it very flippantly, as in they don't read through information carefully. Just like all the information, the cautions we get about password, people ignore it. Same thing with digital signatures, unfortunately. Now, a lot of places are also using biometrics, smart cards. Biometrics is basically when some of your physical characteristics that are unique to you as an individual, unique to you as a human being, are registered on the computer and you alone have access to it. So your retina scan, your fingerprint, we all know that that's very common. Everyone's voice is unique. Even when you say two people sound exact the same, they do not. There is slight variations in the voice, which is why when you're looking at doing fraud examination and you have the law enforcement trying to check the voice of the individuals, they can. Those are all your biometric signatures. Now, what's the danger with the biometric signature? If I put my biometric signature, thumbprint for my phone, thumbprint or the face recognition for your phone to open your phone, someone could gain access to that information. If they have my fingerprint, they can now have access to all my information. So that's the main fear and concern that we have. In a smart card, it's basically like your credit card where it has that chip, and that chip has a lot of data, and that can authenticate you. You insert the chip in the computer, and that then says, yes, you are the person. So obviously, if you have 2-3 layers of verification before someone gains access to the system, that's obviously better. It's not inexpensive. These are all expensive measures, but again, you need to look at the cost benefit. If the benefit is really great of securing your data, securing your system, companies should invest in all of these measures. And continuing on with this, if a company, not if, all companies and all individuals should invest in antivirus software. As I mentioned earlier about Baltimore City, they did not patch their systems as they had to as they were required to, and that's what caused them to have the problem, which was pretty serious. Uh, Start with something basic, even for you at your home. Traditional scanners. These softwares look for known viruses. They look for recognizable patterns. They have limited usefulness, but at least it's some protection versus no protection. Heuristic scanners, this is one level up. It's going to look for unknown viruses. One of the main things it does is it looks at those exe files, the executable files. It's basically looking at any file that's downloaded on your computer and checking to see that that is not going to do something that is going to destroy anything else on your computer. Then there's behavior blocking scanners. Basically what you're looking for is continuous monitoring. Obviously this is a lot better because there are some softwares that will stay dormant for years until there's a trigger, and at that point of time, it's going to act. So you want to basically have continuous monitoring, because I may have thought there was a file that was okay, but suddenly if it does something, I should be able to catch it. And then change detection scanners, it looks for changes to files, again, as it relates to your the executable files, the exe files. So antivirus software are a good investment. We all should invest in it. The larger your company, the more sensitive data you have, you really want to make sure you get something really good over here. Okay. In this investigating virus infections, the one bullet point I want to talk to you about is interview the system custodian and all users. Here we are looking at that one bullet point that I had talked about earlier, where I said that our computer folks, they live in a world of their own, and no one really has stringent supervisory controls over them. And so here what I'm saying is that we really need to be careful who these custodians are, the custodians of our system. They have custody of our system. We need to make sure they're still good actors. Nothing has happened in their lives that has caused them to change how they behave. So we really need to look at that, and all users. Just as we had said in previous chapters, you want to look at payroll and see that there is no ghost employee. Here too, you want to interview all users. You want to see that all users are authorized users, they're legit. Anyone has left the company, all their accounts should be deactivated. They should no longer have access to the system. So doing this is really a very important part of checking that there are no virus infections. These folks are the people who are on the front line. They should know about it. And if you have someone over there who should not be there, they could wreak havoc at beyond anything we can imagine. So when we talk about cyber fraud, we know what e-commerce is, doing business over the internet. The business that you do over the internet, there are so many aspects that you can get compromised. The typical internet fraud schemes are basically old fraud adapted to new digital devices and the internet. You have the new threats we talked about. All of this, the problem is it's an evolving field. It's evolving, as in anything that we knew yesterday is not true today. And some of the challenges are, used to be in the early 80s and 90s when computers just were new. Personal computers were new. Computers have been around since the 50s, but personal computers became new in the 80s and 90s. Used to be young teenagers who were the hackers, and they were doing it just for the fun of it. These were the geeks. But we've moved beyond that in terms of who is committing the fraud and how they're committing the fraud. So some of the things that we can do, as I said earlier, we could have smart cards, we could have memory cards that have only data in it. You could have all your data encrypted, not just signatures. You could have everything encrypted. So again, the more precaution you take, the better off you're going to be in the long run. So what are some of the frauds that are there that were there in the past that have evolved and come into the cyber world, get rich schemes. You will always find that you find these little ads all over the place saying that, oh, you can make money quick, work from home, do this, do that. Same things around over here. Uh, if it's too good to be true, chances are it's not true. There's a problem. Pyramid schemes, getting more people to sign on. Remember, in a pyramid scheme, where do you make money? When you add people to the distribution network. So those things are still true. Foreign trusts, when they promise you that there's a foreign investment where you're going to make large sums of money, same as in the prime bank note. You're looking at people saying that you can make this large sums of money uh, outside of the US. You don't have to pay taxes on it. We'll send you the money. We'll do this, we'll do that. Well, they are all basically frauds. Beware of those. Chain letters. This amuses me because when I was a child, I heard about chain letters, and I thought it was kind of strange that someone would ask me to do a lot of writing, basically, write the letters and send it out. Well, now it's done digitally. Now, when these chain letters come through, usually it preys on people who are innocent and vulnerable in some way, saying that if you send out this letter to 5 other people, some good luck is going to come. If you don't do it, bad luck is going to befall you. And people are going to forward this, and they typically forward it to their own friends and family members. Most of these letters, most of these emails contain a virus. You are being used to spread the virus to many other people. So do not ever fall for those chain letter things. Delete. Don't even read through it. Just delete it and leave it at that. Investment in security fraud, again, just like these get-rich schemes, they're all over the place. You need to go to licensed professionals when you want to do any business with securities. You do not want to participate in any get-rich scheme where someone promises to take your money and make a lot more money for you on the internet. You have no idea where they're going. They could be going to the dark web and giving money over there to someone. You don't want your money to become dirty. You earned it the honest way, keep it that way. And again, the Ponzi schemes. Uh, I guess it's a spin-off on your pyramid schemes, but the Ponzi schemes, nothing good's ever going to come out of it. It is going to catch up with you eventually. Now, when I say nothing good's going to come out of it, you're going to get caught eventually. In the cyber world, it's kind of really different because a lot of the fraudsters they're looking for new opportunities to commit fraud. So they're not going to stay in the same place forever. They're going to move on. They're going to look for a new target. Their new target could be in a new country. It might not be over here. It could be in a whole new place. So trying to catch up with them is really difficult. That's what's different now with the frauds. Okay, so again, talking about how do they do the fraud in terms of how do they use digital devices and the internet. Modem hijacking is, I'm logged into the computer, I'm doing my work, and suddenly I feel like I got booted off, and then I get back on again. In many cases, it's just your internet was interrupted and you got back on. But you need to be extremely careful if that happens when you're dealing with something sensitive, as in if you are on a bank site, your credit card site, any business that you're doing, because someone could have hijacked your modem, as in they disconnected you from your modem and they are now routing you through their modem, which means all the data is going through them and they can see the data that you're passing over there. Now, typically with banks, if you get logged out, you need to re-log back in again, all over again, before it lets you in. So banks have fairly sophisticated networks where they will not let such a thing happen. But you could be an innocent victim in this process and you don't want to let that happen. Spamming, we've heard about this, where they'll try to sell you something. Again, Anytime you get what looks like too good to be true, chances are it's a spam email. Counterfeit check scams. This is when they sell you something and they ask you to make a payment. They tell you like the first small payment should be by check. They ask you to scan your check or ask you for your routing number, bank number. Do not do that, because when you do that, you're essentially giving them access to your bank account. So some of these seem rather shocking that people would fall for it, but they do. Phishing, spear phishing, farming, old things. Phishing is they're trying to trick an individual to disclose sensitive information, personal information. They ask you for your social security number, your password, any of those kind of things. You absolutely have to be careful. At the university, we have this happen so often where we will get an email saying, you need to update your password, log in over here. Obviously, do not do that. You need to go to the council site, the university site to log in to get that information, and not just anywhere. Uh, Spear phishing is when it is done to a corporate employee because they want corporate information. So whoever is a fraudster here is not after the person's individual's information, but they want to gain access to what information that individual has access to. Farming. This is tricking individuals into entering data into a malicious website that impersonate a legit website. As I've told you before, we've seen this happen many a times where you'll be asked to log in to get to a password. It looks like your bank account. A few years ago when the DNC was attacked, it was basically a situation where they were asked to update their password, and the whole sequence of events. It's interesting, you should read up on this, about how it was at the highest levels, people were fooled into giving information and therefore giving access to their entire database. That's very scary. If it could happen at that level, it could happen to any of us and to any business. And then you have internet auctions. Uh, Whether you're looking at buying a car or renting an apartment, they're all scary propositions when you do them on the internet, if they're not through a legit site. So you always want to make sure that those sites are legit and there is some way in which you can verify who they are. They have a physical address, they have a phone number, they have an email address that you can send an email to. If none of those are there, you're asking for trouble. Okay. So again, what can I do to fight this type of fraud? I need to encrypt data. So any data that's sent over the internet should be encrypted. Users should be validated. So if someone is logging into the system, the company should set up their system such that they can authenticate who this person is. Don't store financial information and customer data on the web server that anyone can access. It has to be on a secure site. Have firewalls, build firewalls, 2, 3 levels, how many ever are needed, to make sure that you prevent hackers from getting into your system. At least you want to make the job as difficult as possible for the hackers, even if not completely preventing the hackers from getting into your system. So really what happens is, if someone is trying to get into your system and they're unsuccessful, if you have a good team, they find out that someone is trying to hack in. So as an example, if you log into your bank account and 3 times you enter the incorrect password, it will lock you out. So that's a good system where they're basically saying if 3 attempts you could not do it, you probably are not the right person. You need to call in and reset your account. Or they will send a recovery to some authorized email or authorized phone number and do that. So basically, you want to make the process of hacking very difficult. That should help you then issue a red flag saying someone is trying to hack into my system and I should be able to do something to patch and not let them continue with the hacking. Now, after having said all of this, is all of this bad? Should we avoid the computer? Should we avoid the internet? Absolutely not. Internet and the computer have made our lives so much better in so many different ways. whether you think in terms of education, our healthcare, just about anything you can think of. Life has gotten a whole lot easier with AI, artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is basically the computer trying to mimic the human intelligence. Basically, it's a predictive software. It's trying to predict what your next move is going to be. So it's basically intelligent and it is helping us, but we need to use it to our advantage as corporations and not let it come and work against us. Uh, you have the bots. Again, bots could be used very, very effectively to help you, but they also could be used very effectively to harm you. The distributed denial of service, I mentioned that earlier. These are all rather complex issues that unfortunately are not uncommon anymore. We do hear of these things happen very often, and we need to be aware of it. Something as simple as the security systems we have at our home, not even at workplace, at home. Are they safe? Well, they are safe. They're supposed to keep you safe. That's the objective of the security systems. But could that be used by a criminal? Absolutely. They're going to use it to their advantage if they can have access to it. So the internet is an attractive place for criminals. So there's information over there. The cyberspace gives them a worldwide reach. They can do it anonymously. And even if you catch them, to prosecute them is extremely difficult depending on which jurisdiction they're in. So for all of these reasons, these crimes are getting more complex. We can't hide from it. We can't run away from it. The best we can do is try to guard ourselves as best as we can. Have a plan A, have a plan B, have a plan C. There are 26 letters in the alphabet. Have as many plans as you possibly can to safeguard yourself and your data. Okay. Now again, moving on to with cybercrime and what we're concerned with, it's money that's being stolen eventually, because even if someone's information is stolen, it converts into money. Money laundering in the cyberspace makes our job that much more difficult to follow the money. We've always said, when there is fraud, usually there's money involved. Follow the money, you'll find the fraudster. But now, following the money is becoming even more difficult when you have internet banking and you have banking that can be done overseas. It's done anonymously, as in I can log into the computer and do it. So I don't have to physically be there. So that causes a problem. If someone is trying to find the fraudster, you can access it from anywhere. So sometimes you will hear that your computer was hacked and it was hacked from a foreign country, and you're going to wonder how in the world did that happen? Your credit card was used, and it was used by someone in a foreign country or in a foreign country. Well, the World Wide Web makes all of that possible. Monitoring activities at the micro level is nearly impossible. There's lots of opportunities for cyber criminals to move money around and launder money. So whether there's money that's ill-gotten in one country and then the conversion and the layering is done in another country, and the integration, it's happening all over. Those dollar amounts of $500 billion, that number is a couple years old. Those numbers just get larger. They don't get smaller, unfortunately. There are lots and lots of laws in place that are trying to fight cybercrime. Again, remember, none of us is immune from it. So our best bet is if we get together, share information, and try and fight crime together. So it's law enforcement working together in different countries. It's the banking system working together in different countries. We need to do that if we all have to be safe. Otherwise, the bad actors are going to rule the world very shortly. There are various ways in which you can report all of this. Unfortunately, as I had said earlier, a lot of people do not share this information with any law enforcement when they are a victim of crime, simply because they are afraid about what is going to happen to their reputation. And this has been even the largest companies, like the credit aging monitoring agencies, the ones that give our credit scores, their system was compromised, and they didn't report. They didn't tell the people whose information was compromised, and they have been sued and fined by the SEC and various other agencies. So the problem is real. There are many, many people trying to play catch up, especially law enforcement, but we cannot do the catch up. We cannot have a good system if people are not willing to share the information that they were subject to, they were a victim of the crime. It's embarrassing to admit it. It could be detrimental to your business, but if you don't let someone know, the problem is just going to keep going on. Again, this is an evolving field, and it's best to be prepared. And the best way you can be prepared is to be knowledgeable about what is happening in the cyber world. So with that, we finish this chapter.